Talking about mid-caps itself, let's go straight to our guest. The management of CenturyPly boards is in focus, or rather the management is with us as the company is in focus. FY24 seems to be the year of capacity expansion for them, and we have a lot to discuss with Mr. Bhajanka. We have CapEx plans, the demand, where MDF prices are headed, and more importantly, will there be an ADD on MDF soon or not? Thanks a lot, Keshav, for joining in. Always a pleasure speaking with you. If you could give us a sense of how demand is playing out right now, and at the same time, prices. Have you managed to hold on to prices? Have you cut them? Have you thought of increasing them? How are things on the ground?
Good morning. Firstly, thank you so much for having me on the show. I think, demand is somewhat muted. It is not as robust as what it was last quarter. This is primarily due to a slight liquidity issue in the market on account of the higher interest rates. But I think this is a short-term phenomenon. Given that there has been, because of the muted demand scenario, there has been no real tendency to increase price by the industry as a whole. At the same time, there have been no reductions in price. So we are more or less status quo as far as the prices are concerned.
Okay, all right. Hi, Keshav. Good morning. Thanks so much for joining in. So demand is a little bit muted, and that's the feedback that most on the street are getting as well. Could you tell us about your market share in the various segments? Break it up for us. And also, are you getting a sense that the unorganized market is getting a little bit more aggressive, or you haven't seen any of that?
Good morning. I think, if you look at the largest segment, plywood, we have been steadily gaining market share. But the difficulty is that there is a lot of unorganized market, as you correctly said. So to gauge the exact quantum of market share becomes very difficult. Having said that, I definitely think that, unorganized has not been gaining market share. It is rather the reverse. Players are moving more towards branded products. Customers are moving more towards branded products. And this is a trend that started from COVID onwards, and it is steadily continuing. So if you look at our growth, I think it will be fairly higher than the industry as a whole. And I think that trend is likely to continue.
If you want to quantify your market share in the various segments, if you could tell us.
In plywood, we would be at 7% plus of market share. In laminates, would be close to 6%. Whereas in MDF and particle board, because MDF is a more organized market, we would be at a higher market share. Particle board, it would be slightly lower.
So MDF would be what? And when you say 7% and 6%, it's of the entire market, right? Not just the organized players.
Yes, it would be of the entire market. So MDF, again, because of the quantum of imports changing, it is difficult to put a direct number on it at this point in time. However, us, Green and Action would be the three largest players in the market.
All right. And you spoke about the imports coming in MDF. What exactly is the quantum of imports that have happened in this financial year so far? What is the expectation? Because I remember the last time you joined, you said there is a strong case for ADD on imported MDF. Have you heard from the authorities on that one?
Yes, there is definitely a very strong case for ADD on MDF. And the primary reason being that, India is one of the lowest cost manufacturers of MDF. We have a comparative cost with regards to most, if not all, the ingredients, raw materials that go into the manufacture of MDF. As such, the low prices that are being observed is because of muted demand globally. And that is leading to an additional dumping that is taking place in India. Having said that, the quantum of exports has gone up. I don't have data on me at this point in time, but the quantum of imports has definitely gone up over the course of the past 9 months as shipping rates have normalized.
What is the price difference between imported MDF and the domestic prices?
A 10% price difference. If you look at landed to the customer, it is a 10% price difference between imported and domestic. But of course, along with imports, there's so many other challenges that come into play. For instance, inventory management is far more difficult. We supply in, say, 2 days. An import cycle would be more than 90.
Right.
So,
Could you tell us, there's a price difference in MDF in North and South? What is the pricing difference out there?
Definitely. There is a difference between the North and South because freight cost is a big role in MDF. So if you look at transportation, MDF would sell at anywhere between 30 to 35,000 rupees per ton. And if you look at the transportation or the freight cost between South and North, that in itself is 4,000 rupees. So that means there's a 12% direct freight impact. So the north definitely is a higher freight zone. It's a higher price zone because of the freight component, whereas the south is a slightly, or the west is a slightly lower price zone.
All right. So north prices are around 10 to 12% higher. You spoke about imports, you spoke about ADD, you spoke about the prices itself. But if you could give us a sense of what the MDF demand in the country is and what the domestic capacity is.
So, today in India, I think with all the new capacity additions that have taken place, we would still be at sub 2.5 million cubic meters per annum. And the demand scenario, we are very, very robust on the same because, if you look at, I think there's some reports saying India has just overtaken China as the most populous nation in the world. China's total production capacity for MDF is anywhere between 50 to 60 million cubic meters. So we are still at infancy in this industry. We are a fraction of the size of the Chinese industry. And going forward, as the product is more accepted in the market, as you see the demand for ready-made furniture going up, this is going to be a huge growth vertical. So we're very robust on it in the long term. Yes, there will be some supply-demand mismatches along the way. Sometimes there would be a demand, there would be a demand, there'd be a supply glut. Sometimes there would be a shortage. So those factors come into play. But long term, the roadway for MDF is pretty clear.
All right, Keshav, give us two numbers, across your segments. One is, what is the peak capacity? And in turn, what would be the peak revenues? Where do you get there?
So I think, segment by segment, it keeps changing. Now, if you look at laminates, today we have 8 presses, and we are now moving to 10 presses with the 2 new presses that are being commissioned in Andhra Pradesh. But the 2 new presses in Andhra Pradesh are going to be larger size presses. So that means the revenue potential from the same press is going to be far higher. If you look at plywood, we would be at around 70 to 75% capacity utilization, and there is a long stretch of leeway because we can also augment our capacity quite rapidly. We're also looking at a new capacity addition in Hoshiarpur. In MDF today, we were at 600 cubic meters till February. Right now, we're at 950 cubic meters per day after the commencement of the line 2 in Hoshiarpur. And by the end of the year, we will be at 1900 cubic meters after the commencement of the Andhra Pradesh plant. In particle board, currently we are at 100% capacity utilization of our 200 cubic meter capacity in Chennai. But going forward by FY25, we intend to have new capacity coming in that will be to the tune of 800 cubic meters additional. So across different segments, there are different timelines. But I think, once we start our capacities, the normal tendency is that within 2 to 2.5 years, we try to reach 90% plus capacity utilization. So as and when these different factors come into play, we will definitely be looking at 90% utilization in 2.5 years. And
so FY27.
If you asked about revenue, if you asked about revenue, we have given a guidance that is 20% plus revenue growth, or 20% revenue growth rather per annum. And that I think is something that we are building towards both in terms of capacity and in terms of the activities we take place in the market.
So you reiterate your earlier guidance of 6,500 crore in revenue by FY27, right?
Yes.
Final question before we let you go. The CFS business, we've had this conversation before as well. Are you still looking to hold on to that business? It's a small business, taking management bandwidth. Why wouldn't you just sell it or, demerge it?
We need to look at how to create value for shareholders. Today, you create a small company with a 20-30 crore EBITDA. You have all the organizational costs that go alongside with it. And suppose we put it as a separate listed entity, coverage for that comes down. We look at value destruction for our shareholders. Our objective is always how to create value. To this tune, we have taken over 3 berths at the Kidderpur Port, as you are aware, and at the Kidderpur dock of the Calcutta Port Trust, And going forward, we feel this is going to tremendously aid in a change in the overall EBITDA profile and the nature of the business in itself, because we are going more towards backward integration. After this, we will definitely be looking at getting a partner at a valuation that is comfortable to us, and then deciding what to do with the business.
And after this means the revenue of what? Currently, it's about 83 crores and an EBIT of 13 crores. What is the threshold that you're looking at?
200 crores.
200 crores. By when?
Hopefully by FY25.
All right, take that point. Thank you, Keshav, for joining in. Always a pleasure speaking with you. We will hold on to those numbers that you've guided us for FY25 across your segments as well. With that, take a short break. Come